And then at some point, I had to do that for myself also. That Lemurian version of self that was so present, that's so present with me now. I close my eyes and I am back there. I needed to allow her to be complete. I gently listened to her, held space for her, cared for her, and then walked her out as well.
Welcome to Conversation for the Soul. I'm Linda Christine. Today I speak with Kacie Braham. What depth of knowledge this young woman has. She's raising a couple starseeds. She has beautiful perspective of self for all of us to share and embody. She's a grid worker. She's an earth activator. She shares amazing stories of her remembrance of Lemuria. And we talk about healing ancestral trauma. We talk a little bit about the dragons, my favorite subject, and grid work. And I really think you're going to be impressed by this woman's depth of knowledge. I know I was, and even though some of the subjects we touch upon, I have deep understanding of, I felt like I just anchored in so much more of it. So I hope you feel the same way. And before we begin, please like, share, and subscribe. And here we go with Kacie Braham. Welcome, Kacie. It's so good to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be on this platform with you.
This is fun. I love finding people on social media, and there was something on your account that really drew me to you. I think it was I saw you out with your kids and you were doing some drumming out in the wilderness. Is that something that you've done recently?
Yes, I do often, actually. I take my kiddos. I have starseed kiddos. I'm a starseed mama. And the best way to connect with them is going out into the land, right? To teach them how to connect their hearts back to the heart of Mama Earth and to find balance in themselves. So last year, actually, my younger sister and I started a kiddo drum circle, inviting kiddos from the community to come out and do the same thing, teaching them about ceremony and the importance of connecting back to nature, finding the heartbeat in the trees, and feeling like all the magic that is still around them, right? That is like my biggest passion in life and my earth work surrounds all of that is to like, how do we connect the star seeds back to the earth?
Mm-hmm. So how did this unfold for you? Were you always very connected to the earth since you were a child, or is this something that unfolded for you during an awakening of some sort?
Yes to all of that. It's a this and that situation, right?
Yep, they usually are.
So I've always been connected to the earth. And I've also gone through levels of awakening. I am a new earth ancient one, you might call me. Yes, I have parallel lifetimes. I was in Lemuria. And so that for me is a parallel timeline that I specifically remember the end of that timeline.
Mm.
And I remember the ocean traumas that came in. And also, there's a reason why I remember that. It has to do with my purpose work and my earth work that I do now. I stepped into it in that lifetime. The same work I did then is the same work that I do now.
What was that trauma that unfolded for you in Lemuria?
It was the trauma that everybody carries during that lifetime, right? So we fell out of balance with nature. And then the earthquakes started happening and the volcanoes started erupting. And then the ocean waves started getting bigger and bigger.
Mm.
And at that time, the consciousness on the earth began to change, right? There was a heaviness that came in, a fear consciousness that kind of evaded everybody. And at that time, knowing that we were not going to survive, my soul went into sacred ceremony with several others. And this is a ceremony that is really deep within me. And it actually is a childhood memory that I carried with me and then had like the dropping in of those soul memories during this past year. Right. And so I remember going into sacred ceremony with feels like 12 others at that time and making a promise to them that I would wake them up in this lifetime. And so that is what is some of my purpose work going forward, the bigger soul purpose work, right? We all kind of exist on 3 different platforms when we go through the earth. We have our human existence, we have all of our traumas, and we have all of our karmic loops that we kind of cycle through until we understand what's happening. We have our soul platform, which we can exist on with some of those higher purposes and higher promises that we're here to do. And then there's the masterline work. And when you get to the masterline work, everything changes.
Okay, I want to circle back to that, but have you found any of those 12 souls as of yet?
Yes.
Really? Let's talk about that. How did that happen?
So, this past year, I took a trip back over to Big Island. That for me is where I existed in Lemuria. And I went over there to do some clearing for myself. I went over there to clear some of my ocean trauma that I still carry. And then revisit some of that timeline, right? I camped out with the volcanoes for a week. And I connected back with nature. I wasn't there to connect with the people. I was there to connect back with the earth. The earth work that I do now is I help mountains and volcanoes shift into that higher timeline of the new earth. I assist them to change in any way that they need assistance. And sometimes there are light beings inside of the volcanoes and the mountains that need to be waken up to do their work. There's levels of consciousness that need to come back online now. This is the lifetime that we have been waiting for.
So how do you see this, your lifetime now on this planet unfolding for others? Do you have any visions of that, or are you just in the now working on your stuff?
It's both, right? So I get visions of future timelines all the time. And then I hold space for that to unfold. I can be very present in the moment and work on what I'm doing now, but also hold that interest of where we're going and where we're headed, and hold the energy of that in order to get there. So I see future timelines and I see the events that are coming, right? And then also there's those soul remembrances that pop back in when they need to, when we're ready, and when we're ready to take action towards whatever we need to go towards.
What are the events that you're seeing? Potentials?
Well, there's a good and bad always, right?
Yeah.
There's a higher consciousness level, and then there's the one that's the fear-based consciousness level. And at some point, there's going to be a bigger and bigger division. And so people that are on that lower timeline are going to experience more catastrophes on the earth, more of the crumbling apart of the old systems. All of the things that we have been hearing about are going to happen. Those of us that are kind of anchoring in that new earth experience, we're going to experience the highest of the highs, right? We're going to see more and more glimpses of the new earth. We're going to see the earth change around us. And we're going to see more of our brothers and sisters waking up to join us.
How will that play out? Because I've heard a lot of different thoughts on how that would play out. Like there will be 2 separate earths. I've heard there will be just some people will be in 5D, some will remain in 3D, and they really won't see each other. How do you see that playing out?
I see it more as the latter, but again, it's not up for me to kind of figure out the how. It's up for me to hold that picture of where we're going and to let it unfold, because my human brain cannot hold the biggest expansion of all things, right? I like to play in the mystery and the magic of the universe and let the universe surprise me in the best ways. And so that's my job.
I love that. I love that. Wow. So, okay. Let's talk about Kacie growing up. What was she like? And when did she step into her power and become this sacred earth goddess?
I'm in continual state of expansion, right? So even me stepping out in this platform right now is pushing my comfort levels a little bit. I'm used to being kind of like a ninja light worker, right? To work on the behind the scenes kind of situation. And now I'm finding that even my guides now are pushing me to step forward on that social media platform a little bit, right? And to show that light work is like normal, right? So they're like, tell them why you're sitting in a cemetery anchoring light, right? Tell them why you're going to these sacred sites. It's normal. And the little star seeds that are waking up need to know that it's normal so that they will want to be here, right? But
So
as a
let's
little
talk
girl,
about you when you were little.
yeah, as a little girl, I was very tapped into like, I remember playing with fairies and playing in the forest, right? That was my happy place always. A little socially awkward, perhaps, in everyday situations. Um, and I'm still a little bit that way, right? So get me out in nature, like I shine the most. And I think that's probably true for most star seeds that are like, we're here to work with the earth. We're not necessarily here to work with humanity, although we can hold space for all of that, right? In my professional life, I work with clients one-on-one, either through Zoom or I do Lomi Lomi massage, but also I work on the higher levels, right? So I work with the human body, how to get in there and kind of remove blocks, and how do we get into past life energies that we're still carrying forward. And I help clients get to that like higher level of self through the human body, which is really fun, right? So I get to see the changes that the human body can make and steps towards ascension, taking our bodies with us every step of the way.
Beautiful, beautiful. So when you started doing this work, do you have a husband, family?
I have a previous partner that we are actually going through uncoupling with right now, right?
Okay.
Yes, it was like a 20-year relationship that we kind of played out what was in our Akashic records and maybe not started from a place of wholeness. And so that partnership reached completion. And we both hold the biggest, highest love for each other, but knowing that our paths are divided now.
Wow.
And that he will always be part of my life and part of my extended family. But going forward, I'm calling a new kind of partnership for my life, right? That divine partnership. And some of that we had back then in those ancient times. I recently was made aware of my divine partner that is from Lemuria timeline. He is a beautiful soul and we've had a connection, but he in this lifetime does not have memories of that timeline. Even though he's given himself the gift of actually being back there on Big Island where we were at that time, he's back home, but he doesn't have a connection to that timeline. But through that meeting with him, I was able to connect to his higher level of self and find all the answers that I needed his higher level of self had for me, showing me what our divine partnership was in order for me to kind of have that embodied learning and kind of pull that in, that energy of what we had into my future, and to know that what I'm looking for, I've already had, which is really beautiful.
I'm just curious what extended family, parents and all of that think of the work that you do, because I think that's really challenging sometimes for light workers to fully embody and step into who they are because they carry fear of what others will think.
I think as light workers, we have to get to this space where we can't carry that consciousness on our shoulders anymore, right? We have to let go of the fear of stepping out because we have to step fully into who we are in order to come and do the things that we need to do in this lifetime. And I feel like this is a lifetime of the culmination of like everything our soul has gone through is coming up to this point now. There's no longer time to kind of be in that fear space. It's go time.
What were some of the challenges you went through in stepping into that?
Growing up, I was raised super religious. My parents still kind of are in that religious form. And so through my teenage years, I kind of acted out and rebelled a little bit, right? Trying to find myself in other ways. I think we all kind of go through that a little bit, that growth phase. And then I found that like anything associated to religion, I pushed off. I didn't want anything to do with it. So even dealing with like the angelic realms, I had no place for them. I was like, okay, who else wants to come through? The Elohim? No, thank you. Who else wants to talk to me today, right? So I've had to kind of backtrack a little bit and understand that there's a space and a place for all of those beings, and the angelic realm are just like the other galactics.
Are angelics galactics,
I
or
think so.
are they separate? Okay, yeah, I kind of thought so too, but I'm
Mhm.
curious to know your take on it.
I hold some very interesting galactic pieces that are also kind of angelic pieces, right? I part of my soul lineage is the Anahazi, which are seeded from the Elohim. We are protectors of that 12-strand DNA that is coming back into form, and almost like guardians of that human race lineage. So I've really had to come to acceptance and like appreciation of some of those angelic races in order to fully step into who I am.
Hmm. Wow, fascinating. You have such clarity in everything and so much knowing around those parallel timelines, or what some might call past lives. Um, how did that come to be for you? Because you have such a depth of information around all of that.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like it must have been coming in for years.
I think we all kind of went through an awakening phase around 2012, 2013. A lot of us did, right? So for me, in my path, I received guidance that the first time I received a massage, I was going through school at the time, and that beautiful massage therapist who was also intuitive put her hands on me. She used hot rocks, and then she proceeded to tell me that I was going to go to massage school, become a massage therapist, and be successful. So after I graduated, within that like month, I changed my life plan, right? So I went to school in Portland, Oregon, went to massage school. And then around 2012, 2013, I decided to go get Lomi Lomi training. And it was over in Maui. And what a beautiful gift I gave myself. The first time I stepped back on that island, my soul felt like it came back home.
Mm.
And so I started going through awakening process through those kind of learning experiences. My Kumu, my teacher, she was not just a Lomi Lomi practitioner. No, she took us to sacred sites on the island. And I had some of my gifts and my more awakening started happening. She would take us to heiau, sacred temples, and I would see images of the Hanu, the turtles, right? Their face would pop out at me. The ancient ones would be there with me. Every time I would be out in nature, I would have these big nature experiences. The wind would pick up, or we'd suddenly get drenched with rain because the land was calling for that water element to come forward, right? To be included in the sacred ceremonies we were doing. And so I was taught not just how to work physically on the body, but also like to reach those higher levels, to talk to the higher self the whole time. And so I think that I've had these beautiful teachers step in my path to kind of help me get to the next level of self that I needed to get to every step of the way.
Mm. Wow, that is beautiful. I feel that on the Big Island as well. I've been there
Mm-hmm.
a few times, and every time that I'm there, I just feel so at peace and so happy and joyful. Um, I'm curious because I have recently been dealing with some shadow from Atlantis,
Mm-hmm.
and I know we've all probably been there, as well as Lemuria. Um, I feel like my Lemurian life was probably a lot less traumatic, which is why the Atlantean one keeps coming through. Have you had any experience with lives in Atlantis?
I am not connected to Atlantis at all. I have no pull for Atlantis or Egypt. And I feel like people that have Atlantis codes also have their Egypt codes tied in. There's a lot of similarity in like the stories that were played out of control and manipulation on both of those levels, right?
Yeah.
I saw your post actually about clearing some of your Atlantis hybridization experiences. And I just am curious if like that level of self that you can tap into, if at this point it needs to be walked out.
You mean like get rid of it? Like just,
I mean, like, because that experience has brought you so much learning and so much growth that maybe it's complete at this time. That
I,
maybe,
I do feel like I still feel there's fractals there that need to be
Mhm.
dealt with, but I
Beautiful.
feel that the heavy lifting is done.
Yes. So for me, with my Lemurian timeline, right, I remember my ocean trauma is wrapped up in the trauma of like losing those souls in that lifetime.
Mm.
And I had to understand that both of those levels were going on, right? So I've done some clearing on that timeline. I found another sister who was in Lemuria with me, and she held space for me as I was able to kind of see that reality, to see those souls. But also, my soul was asking me to clear that timeline. So I had to open up this beautiful portal of light and see myself bringing all of those souls back out of the ocean,
Mm.
knowing that I did everything that I could do to save them and walk them out. And then at some point, I had to do that for myself also. That Lemurian version of self that was so present, that's so present with me now. I close my eyes and I am back there. I needed to allow her to be complete.
Mm.
I gently listened to her, held space for her, cared for her, and then walked her out as well.
Mm. Thank you for that. Because that's I think a good lesson for any of us who are dealing with these traumas that we've carried through into this form,
Mhm.
um, to be able to get to that point. A lot of times it's interesting how things will just show up to be addressed, and it's very important to have awareness around that. What kind of guidance would you offer somebody who has some possible reoccurring traumas that they're not sure where they're coming from? How would you guide them into dealing with that and uncovering where it's coming from?
You know, our human body holds all of our information for us from every timeline. If we can dig into the places that feel stuck in our body, a lot of times those memories, those emotions will come forward, right? And we still hold cords and contracts from those timelines that are still running. So it's important to go in through the human body and kind of discover what's hiding out in there, what wants to come forward, right? And if you don't have the access to do that sort of thing yourself, if you're not in tune with your human body yet, like reach out to find a practitioner that is. There's so many of us that are waking up right now that can hold space, that know how to go into the Akashics and kind of see what's around in there to see what your patterns are playing out. And a lot of times those patterns of the Akashics will be the same patterns that we're playing out in our relationships now, right? So those abandonment wounds, those kind of like inner child issues that we have that we've dealt with in this lifetime, most of the time they didn't start in this lifetime, right? So as we're doing our clearing work, it's important to go back in and see how far back they go and bring up every lifetime that they've occurred so that they can be complete as well.
So true. I went through stage 3 colon cancer in 2013, and I was that was my wake up call to, it's like, okay, no more playing around. We're going to shake you awake with this. And the more I examined it as I started to wake up, I found that anger was part of the manifestation of that. That wasn't just from this lifetime and the misery I was going through and my job and the people I was around. It had to do with the anger from that time as a hybrid in Atlantis. It had to do with anger from lifetimes of persecution, for practicing what was perceived as witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, really imperative that we look at those things, don't you think?
Absolutely, yes. And our human body has all of that for us, right? So has all those clues for us.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about your little baby star seeds.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of magic have they stepped in with in this lifetime? What kind of beautiful things are you seeing come out of these little ones?
In my own, I have two Starseed boys. I have a 13-year-old and I have a little 5-year-old, right? And my 13-year-old is showing up as an old soul as well. He is here in this lifetime to do his work, but he doesn't really have much patience for some of this like human experience, right? So on the drives to school, I have little soul talks with him and talk to him on that soul level. and say like, hey, buddy, I know that maybe your experience with school is not the best right now. And I know that you just want to get through it so you can get to the rest of your life to kind of play in that magic field. But we kind of need you to be on that same playing field to like step up and do some of the stuff that you need to do, right? And my boys are both in public school right now, but I feel like we're on the precipice of big change for that also, right? And I was talking to my oldest about some of my ocean trauma a little bit and why mom had taken a trip over to Big Island recently. And he was like, Mom, I love the ocean too. And I was like, I know you do, bud. And he's like, yeah, but I would never just jump in it. And I was like, oh, interesting, right? So
Ah.
without putting any limitations or expectations of my own on that, I was holding space for perhaps he was there with us during that timeline. And so maybe by my clearing out that ocean trauma, I'm doing clearing for him too. So he doesn't have to kind of have those memories that I have, but maybe he can clear it out on that soul level, that he can just get to work when he's ready to.
Mm.
And my little guy is very different. I'm curious that if this is his first lifetime in the human body, he's just a little fireball. He loves everything about the human experience. He loves food. He loves moving his body, right? Both my boys kind of exhibit what you would call like ADHD. They're run on the higher level. But I have just held space for all of that and kind of been super flexible in the way that I show up as a mama and to like serve them the best way that I can and support them the best way that I can and have these big conversations with them now when they're little so that they can continue to hang on to their magic, right? My little 5-year-olds, we talk in our language. We do our little starseed language, right? So whatever he wants to bring forward, I want him to be able to vocalize and kind of hang on to that magic, right? And when we go out in nature, we hug the trees, we talk to the trees, we talk to everything around us. I feel like that as older generations, we've kind of lost our magic and then we have to come back to it. It's my hope and my goal that my boys never lose their magic, that they can just hang on to it and show up in the world in wholeness, right? Without having to clear off some of these layers of trauma that maybe us older generations have had to do.
Let's talk a little bit about that. I'm curious to know your thoughts around generational trauma and how we go about healing that. And is that something, because to me, it doesn't feel linear. It feels like when that's healed, it goes back as well as forward. It just kind of takes in everything and heals all of it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I do a lot of that work with my clients now when they come in, right? So I think that all of us that are conscious and awake, we are sometimes like the change makers in our family lines. So if we have that consciousness, we're the ones here to clear out those family lines. In my lifetime, I've had the experience of being a starseed walk-in. My younger sister has had that same experience, but it's not quite at the level of what is described. So in my lifetime, I don't have the experience of like jumping into the body. I just have the experience of being contracted with a great grandmother of mine on my dad's side. And so all of my great grandmother Hazel's contracts and karmic bonds, lineage, stuff like that was inside of my body as well as my own. So when I found out about that, I would tap into the Akashics and I would ask my body, hey, body, can we show me all of Hazel's stuff surrounded by abandonment? Okay, it's lighting up this side of my body. Can we then look at all of my stuff that's surrounded by abandonment and bring that up as well and then clear out my side? And there was a complete division in my body of what was Hazel's and what was mine. And it was like the completion of all that. I spent probably good like 6 months once I figured that out. I cracked the code to that of how to clear out Hazel's stuff because I was contracted to do that beautiful work for her. And when I was done at that completion, I then held a beautiful ceremony to walk her out. And I could feel this expansion in my body that I have never felt before. And I could feel her energy leave and expand out in a way that was beyond the human expression of words. And I knew that I had been here to clear out her work, right? And so we're here to do some of that work once we're awake and we're conscious of that.
How do we dig into that? How do we even know where to start? Do you find an Akashic reader that can go in and see if that's going on? Or do you feel into the body and you figure out, am I carrying something? Or I'm curious
the most beautiful, simplest question to ask always, right? When something comes up for us is that even mine? right? So if we're having an emotion and experience, is that even mine that I'm carrying? Is it a family line trait? Does it belong to somebody else? Does it belong to my partner that I'm in relation with? Am I filtering his stuff for him? Is it his family line stuff? So we always come to this place of curiosity, right? So I'm always just curious in the world and I'm asking, and our body will hold the answers for us, yes or no, right? And sometimes we might need a little extra tool, like bring in a pendulum, bring in something that can give us a little bit of clarity. Sometimes when things are enmeshed, like when we take on other people's stuff, sometimes it's hard to tell what is ours and what is somebody else's. So taking those baby steps and just like learning to have conversations with your body, right? So learning to know what your intuition feels like. And those solid yeses will come through more and more once you start to have that conversation and open up with your higher self, your intuition self, and through your body, you can discover all of that.
Carrying other people's stuff. How long do you think that could go on? Could you like carry a trauma from your sibling in childhood, let's say, and be a 50-year-old and still hold on to that?
Well, we know we carry traumas from our past lives, right? So we can carry traumas forever.
True. Wow. Fascinating. So what's some of the, aside from the Lemurian grid work that you did, what's some other grid work that you've been doing?
I do grid work now. I'm an activator for the earth. So the earth, my guides will tell me places that I need to go visit, right? They'll intuitively let me know where I need to go. And they'll give me a timeline like, hey, this needs to be done before the equinox, right? You need to show up here. And so I'm not very much like a transmuter. That's not really my position. Some people go to like these heavy ley lines and kind of clear out the ancient stuff. And I can do a little bit of that. But mostly what I'm here for is anchoring in some of like the new earth stuff, right? So my vibration is a little bit higher. And so I actually am called to use my body as a portal of light. And so even in the ancient times in Lemuria, I would go into the mountains and the volcanoes. And to me, they were ancient crystal temples, right? And so I would enter into these spaces and we would activate, we would open up different little portals and allow different cosmic energies to come in and be anchored into the earth. And that's the same work that I do now. But now I'm learning as I've gotten to this higher level of consciousness, almost that mastery level, I'm not here to do that work by myself. And so these are those same souls that I'm contracted to wake up. We each hold keys and codes for each other to unlock different portals, parts of the cosmos, for these new star races to come in and be able to anchor here on Earth. And the reason why we do this, of course, is for those star beings. These different galactic races, these higher dimensional beings, have new star beings that need to be here on the Earth. But in order for those star beings to be here, there has to be that same anchor of vibration, of frequency, so that they can feel like home.
Wow, that's beautiful. As you were saying that, I'm thinking, because if I had my way, this would not be my first choice of something to do, podcasting. But in 2021, I kept getting pushed and pushed and pushed by spirit. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll do it. And then I started, and it was really fun because I started connecting with a lot of people that I know from other timelines, which is fascinating. And then I started connecting other people with other people. And I'm like, okay, I see the bigger picture now for this. So I always said, as long as it keeps being fun, I'll keep doing it. So when we're called, we don't need to overthink it. We just need to listen.
Very much.
Because it's a lot like some of the things that you're doing. It's like, why am I being called to a cemetery? I mean, what's up with that?
A lot of that for me has to do with the stargates, right? So when stargate portals are open, it's a chance for like some of these cosmic energies to come through, but it's also a way for some of our souls that are here on the earth plane to be able to travel out, right? So they're like these galactic highways that help you get to places a lot faster. So during those portal times, we are asked to do things and we don't need to question why. We just do it because it helps the earth and it helps humanity and it helps the bigger picture of all things.
So we just need to listen
Mm-hmm.
and not ask too many questions. Just do it. Your higher self knows what's going on, right?
And the answers will always come, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes I have to do the thing and then I get the information later.
Yeah. Yeah. So, oh shoot, I had a question come up and now I lost it. So I think it had to do with grid work. Um, I know a lot of people that get called to certain places on the planet to
Mm-hmm.
just, I do too. I, I
Mm-hmm.
I was drawn to Sedona for like 5 years in a row. And then the last year I was there, it was always on my birthday or around my birthday time of year. And the last year I was there, I started seeing things in the sky and I got the message, you don't need to come back. So I don't know what I was doing, but I was doing something every year I went there
Yeah.
on my solar return.
And perhaps that was an activation for your soul also, right? So sometimes we're not necessarily doing, we're receiving.
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and I feel a lot of indigenous lineages tied to myself. Um, I'm curious, have you come across any dragons or worked with any dragons on your journey thus far?
Well, there's information coming forward about like the 13 dragons that are in the ley lines and the crested in the earth, right?
Mm.
Do you know about this?
No,
So
I do
these are
not.
like
Share.
these are the ancient guardians of the ley lines, the 13 dragon masters, right? The 13 dragons. They're still here on the earth, but they're inside sleeping. And it's information about them that when the earth's vibration gets high enough, that they will come forward again. But they're waiting for the consciousness to change. But for me, when I see that image, it's not just the dragons coming awake. It has to do with the masters holding the master keys. I see the dragons walking with the masters. So it has to do with those beings, those ancient beings that are here now, that we have to come together. It's like a calling back of the tribes that have to reunite in order for everything to get to the next level.
What's the simplest thing we can each do to help get to that next level, or is it more complex?
We have to do our work, right? We have to do our work, our internal shadow work, in order to have these soul memories drop in order to awaken to the level that we need to get to play that mastery line game. And also, we have to reach out to each other because we don't have the codes and keys in ourselves to awaken to some of these levels. We're not supposed to do this work alone. It was never designed that way. We have to reach out. We have to hear the tones of others. We have to connect in physicality because we hold different codes and keys for each other in order for us to wake each other up.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when these dragons, I mean, gosh, I'd love to see them in our lifetime. Do you think we will?
Of course we will. That's why we're here.
Awesome,
I'm
awesome.
connected to a dragon. My dragon is an ocean dragon. It has to do with me healing my trauma of the ocean, though. Like I can see my dragon, but I don't hear the tones yet because I haven't fully cleared that trauma.
Mm,
And so I know that dragon language will come through for me, but I'm not quite there yet.
wow. Wow, I love that. And what about the giants? What do you know? There's been a lot of talk lately about people witnessing giants, seeing giants in stasis under the earth. Have you ever had any knowledge of that or connection with that?
I see the giants like the great creators, right? They're the ones that helped create the earth, perhaps, and multiple planets, right? So the time of the giants is coming back. We're seeing also like the timeline of the human beings being elongated also, right? We know that whale beings on the earth can live up to like 300 years.
Mm.
And I think that if we choose to, and when we choose to like ignite our light bodies rather than work our chakra systems, when we fully transfer into our light body systems, our human timelines can be elongated also. Like if you were to tap into my light body now, I run my light system. I don't run my chakra system. And I
Hmm.
think that a lot of our starseed kiddos coming into the earth plane now, they don't run their chakra systems. If you were to tap into them on that energy level, they're already running their light systems. And for me, they just look like the meridians of light. We have meridians and energy light bodies, right? and full activation of our light body, we look like celestial stars. Our energy centers are still there, but they're not just like 3D, right? They're multidimensional. So they come out in all directions. And so when we're fully in our light, in our multidimensional bodies, and we're running that way, we look like celestial stars.
Beautiful. I heard something recently, and I'd never heard this before. I'll see if I can do it justice and explain it properly. That the chakra systems were separated by, let's just say, the New World Order to kind of enslave us, to where our chakras should actually be all unified as one unit instead of separate.
They keep us boxed in, right? So our chakra system allows us to expand to a certain level, but then that stops there, right? When we reach full expansion, we just run our full light body. We look like a big channel of light, and that's what they're referring to. But our chakra system came in when the density came in. If we tap back into Lemuria in those ancient times, we ran our light systems. We didn't run our chakra systems. The chakra system came in as a beautiful tool for us to be able to expand out in the most dense times. But they're not an ending place. They're a place of understanding of exactly what they are and appreciate them for what they are, and then choosing to step out of them.
Kind of a bridge to help us get to that light body.
Yes, absolutely.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And if we tap into some of these other kind of foundational people in the earth that are running their full light bodies, you'll see that they are like, they glow a little bit more, right? So like they have like shinier skin, they look a little bit more youthful, like they're running their light systems. Like our bodies want to emit light on a cellular level, like those little toroidal fields, they look like light inside of our cells, right? So, and it has to do with like the water that we carry and activating that water into structured water and allowing it to carry that light.
Where does the Merkaba come into all of this?
The Merkaba for me is like an ancient tool. I've done some transmuting kind of back some of these ancient symbols back to their purity, like their most purest form, like the Ankh, the Merkaba, like some of these symbols, they got weighed down by the density of humanity, right? So at their purest form, they might shift and change. And they might be complete also, right? So they were a beautiful tool of allowing us to like transfer out and to be a portal of transportation when we needed a portal of transportation. When we run our multidimensional selves, we just go. We don't need a vehicle to take us anywhere.
Wow, I love that. Love that. What can you share with us today, Kacie? Do you have anything like light language, or I don't know, what moves you right now? And no pressure. If nothing comes to mind, we don't have to do this.
I think it's just the knowledge that some of this ancient times are coming back, right? We're here to heal those ancient timelines, but also to remember the purity of what they were before some of the density came in, right? And some of these big star lineages are starting to come back right now. And it has to do with like the founder races that are coming back online. And it has to do with like activating our angelic human selves in order to get to the highest timeline for where we're going. I'm just tapping in for a sec.
No, go ahead.
Come through.
Take your time.
For me, it's just like stepping back into that space where everything holds magic and knowledge, right? We work with crystals because we understand crystals have a frequency and they have a information field that we can tap into. The same with every living thing on the earth, the trees, the wind, all of these things that are here surrounding us all have magic and wisdom for us if we can tap into that knowledge and allow ourselves to go to that space where we can receive. All of the information we need is around us, whether we're tapping in, whether we're expanding out and exploring those like big pathways to get to expansion, to go to those source codes that hold all the information of all that is. We can tap into that at any time. Like, we are the source of everything we need. We just have to get to the level of understanding that.
What can we do for Gaia right now to assist her?
It depends on what level of Gaia you're tapping into. Here in the human world, right, we can do the stuff that she really needs. We can be conscious about like our garbage level and how we consume things, and like how we support our neighbors and how we treat other people. All of those things can affect the earth in this way. Having a consciousness about us that is bigger than ourselves is the most important thing. If we're tapping into Gaia on her most ascended level, she just wants that soul connection of acknowledgement that she is already there and she's holding space for us to get there.
I feel that. It's beautiful. Beautiful. What, I remember my question from before. What supernatural experiences have you had? Now I know you are a higher level being, but supernatural in the sense where it'd be like, oh, wow, maybe somebody hasn't experienced this. Is there anything that comes to mind for you? Like galactic connections, things in the sky, things on the planet?
I have magical experiences every day. I live in this space of like miracles and wonder that I don't know that a lot of people get to experience.
Oh, sure.
Well, just the fact that like my kiddos and I play this game of like, hey, is that a cloud or is that a spaceship? Right. And we tap into the consciousness just going outside. Right. And so like when you are open to having those experiences show up and they surround you and they support you. And for a lot of times, it's been something that we've been able to, for myself, I've been able to experience, but then felt like, oh, but I shouldn't talk about this, right? So it's something that's like, that was just for me, and I appreciate that. But now it feels like we're getting to that place where it's okay to talk about it. Like, we're all stepping forward as light workers, as these ancient ones, because it's time. And we need to come together, and the tribes are recollecting, right? And to understand that, yes, there's clouds, but there's also spaceships out there. And those are our family, and they're here to support us. And there's nothing to be afraid of.
Absolutely. You know, and we've well surpassed that point where I think we can be called crazy because there's too many of us now.
Yeah. What is crazy, right?
And we're all talking about the same stuff. So it's like, okay, well, what? Come on.
And it can be as simple as like, what kind of consciousness are you choosing, right? So when it comes back to that, are you choosing fear? Are you choosing love? And if you're choosing love, go after the things that light you up in those everyday experiences. That's how I base everything. Everything is energy, right? So when I make my choices, it's like, what lights me up the most? What's going to bring me the most expansion in this small space? And let's go that way. I like to live in my life like big adventures, right? So what kind of big adventures can we call into our lifetime now?
And you can go right down the street and have your big adventure. You don't have to go halfway around the world, you know?
Yeah. And sometimes you go halfway around the world, and that's even great too, right? So it's just being in that open state and calling in those miracles on the everyday level, calling in all those experiences you want to have, because this is a lifetime to do it, and to step into your power fully, right? To step into your magic and your play, remembering your childhood experiences and bringing them forward. There's magic in everyday life, and we just have to go soak it up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this was a magical experience, my dear. I so appreciate you.
Yay, thank you. This was amazing.
I'd love for you to share with everybody some of the things you have going on. I'll put all your information below, but why don't you go ahead and share some of the things that you're working on with folks right now?
I am active on the platforms of like social media. I still see clients in person here. I'm in Bend, Oregon, and feel like that's a transitional space for me for a little while. So I'll be moving about. I have soul family in lots of places. On a big perspective, I can see myself eventually like traveling around and kind of visiting the soul family maybe having retreats, maybe having these sacred sites experiences where I call in other people and we have activations on a bigger scale. That's something that's coming forward. There's some healing of the waters. So some of my kind of ancient priestess sisters that all kind of have this knowledge are starting to step forward. And so we're going to be doing some sacred ceremonies of healing the sacred waters, bringing forth those water codes, because now is the time to really focus on that water. So all of that is coming forward. And I think more and more experiences where we're going to involve the reconnection on that human level, right? Being in that physicality of those tribe spaces. So you'll start to see some kind of projects like that coming forward as well.
Oh, you're a busy lady.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate you being here today, Kacie. Thank you for sharing everything with us.
Yay. Thank you so much.
All righty. We'll say goodbye to everybody.
Have a good day, guys.
Bye.